welcome everyone to our onboarding of new backbone staff and launching of the Community Innovation Fund. So during this webinar, we are going to provide an overview of the Communities Building Youth Futures. We're not making any assumptions that anybody knows all of this. That's our way of onboarding new staff. So we're going to give you an overview. We're going to present timeline and key milestones. Actually, some of this might be new or a new way to present that for some of you who have been with us for a while. We're going to review also some coaching supports that are available to communities. And then we're going to launch our Community Innovation Fund. We're going to describe a new learning series that's new for the Community Innovation Fund to support you in your development of community youth-led projects. So again, I will pass it on to everyone, but welcome everyone. And hopefully if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat box or email any one of us after the presentation.
Hi everyone, thank you so much, Natalie. My name is Trisha Islam. For those of you who have not met me, I know I've met a bunch of you before. I'm one of the managers of cities for the Communities Building Youth Futures initiative. I'm based in Toronto, also known as Takaranto, and I am so excited to share with you some information about the Communities Building Youth Futures initiative. A lot of this is older information for those of you who've been around with us for a while, but for those of you who are new, we're hoping that we can get everybody on the same page. So I'll get us started. So Communities Building Youth Futures, it's a 5-year initiative. So we started in 2019 going until 2024. So we're working with up to 13 communities, and I'll have a slide with all 13 communities in just a second. And the purpose of the project is to develop collective impact and system-wide solutions for at minimum 5,000 young people so that they can build plans for their future. This strategy is funded by the Government of Canada through the Youth Employment and Skills Strategy and delivered by TAMRAC. So that's us. Also, if you have any questions at any point, as Natalie mentioned, please type them into the chat box and we will get back to you. So in terms of the project design, so what we're hoping to do, we're hoping to support young people who are facing barriers to graduate from high school to further opportunities after high school. We're hoping to improve the lives of young people who are transitioning so they can transition into post-secondary training and employment opportunities. We'd love to improve engagement of young people and then increase the number of community and national partnerships so that we can reach lots of young people and hopefully do some system-wide change. So how are we going to know that we will have achieved or made progress towards this work? We're hoping that at minimum 5,000 young people will be a part of this education to employment journey. One thing that I want to clarify is that it's not 5,000 per community or 5,000 divided by 13 communities. Natalie and Pamela and the TAMRAC team will work with you to create an evaluation plan that's specific to your community and has metrics that are achievable. So don't stress about that. We're also hoping to see a 25% increase in the number of young people who are completing high school, and then a 15% increase in the number of young people who are transitioning into post-secondary supports after they complete high school. So a bit of a refresher for those of you who've been around for a while, but it's good to have these metrics up. So other ways that we're going to know that we will have achieved or worked towards our goals are that youth will express positive comments about their engagement and involvement as part of this initiative. They're going to be part of the local leadership tables. So as part of the onboarding, each leadership table is supposed to have at least 25% representation from young people. So we're hoping that you can continue to do that. We're hoping to engage local leaders from up to 13 communities, engaging education systems, employers, and then we're hoping that we can also scale and pilot the innovative projects that you're doing in your communities. So as we're doing this work, we recognize that there needs to be certain strategic aspects to it so that we can implement it in a way that is effective for all of us. So firstly, we want to make sure that the design of the project itself engages young people, both in terms of the input and the consultation, but also throughout the decision-making process. So we truly care about youth partnerships, and we want that to be reflected in all aspects of the project. As you know, TAMRAC is known for our collective impact work, so we'll be using this framework to build strategies both at the communities level, but also at the national level, so they will be mirroring each other. We're focusing on strengths and assets, and then building upon that, we're hoping to leverage the local community capacity and action that exists within your local communities. And then lastly, we're hoping that collectively we can keep track of the impact that you're making in your communities, but also at a broader level so that we can all learn from each other. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box, or you can reach out to Kimber or myself. So just to recap, there are 6 key components to CBYF. The first one is the community youth initiative. So that's each of your communities, up to 13 communities across Canada who are pursuing collective impact efforts at a local level. The second piece is the National Collaborative. So this is a group of organizations, young people, business, different sectors who are coming together to address the system level barriers. And what's really cool about that is that National Collaborative parallels, mirrors the work that's being done at the local level. So there's a synergy between the 2 components. The third aspect is the annual partner convening. So this is an opportunity for everybody to come together so we can learn from each other. For those of you who are able to join us in March in person, we'll be doing that again. It won't be in person next year, but we do have some exciting opportunities for that gathering, which we'll let you know about in due time. The fourth aspect of Communities Building Youth Futures is the coaching and implementation of supports. So I'll actually be sharing with you some coaching supports that are new that you can take advantage of for this year. But essentially, there's some coaching that's available to all the communities. So each of the community has been assigned a director who provides one-on-one coaching to your communities, and you have access to that throughout the initiative. We also have a community innovation funds, which Kimber will be talking about in just a second. But essentially, it's to support innovative projects that are being cultivated in your communities. And then lastly, the 6th component is evaluation and learning. So we're hoping that communities can learn from each other, but we can learn as a whole so that we continue to improve and work towards our shared outcomes. So with that being said, we are excited to share with you a process and timeline. So many communities have let us know that you want to know what's coming up in the upcoming years. So Natalie, Kimber, and myself have been working really hard on developing this timeline for you. So in this visual, you'll see that we have a gray timeline across the top. So because we work with the government's fiscal calendar, our quarters start at the beginning of April. So right now we are in Q2, I believe. But you'll see that this calendar actually starts in July. So that's where we started the work around the common agenda and where you started building your backbone staff. So the gray line shows you the key dates and milestones throughout the year. So on September 14th, which is today, we will be launching the Innovation Fund proposals call. On October 15th, that's the first reporting deadline. Don't worry about this because on September 30th, there is another private webinar that will equip you with the information you need to provide the information for this deadline. October 30th is the Innovation Fund proposals deadline. January 15th is another reporting deadline. On February 8th, we're going to ask you to submit the budget for 2021 to 2022. So similar to what you've done just a few months ago, we'll ask you to submit a proposal for the upcoming year, and then you'll be receiving the funds for next year on February 25th. So one way you can think about that is you'll be receiving funds before you will have started spending it. You'll receive funds for 2021 on February 25th. And then we have and I actually can't see it on my screen, there it is, the annual evaluation report on April 15th, which we'll be working with you on. So against this timeline, we have 4 key curriculum screens that we'll be working on throughout the course of this year. So as I mentioned, we know that in the summer and just hearing on the call right now, there are a number of you who are still hiring backbone staff. So welcome to all of you who are newly hired, and good luck to those of you who are in the hiring process. We anticipate that you're going to be hiring up until about the end of this month. In addition to that, we have 3 more curriculum streams. So the Common Agenda and Core Strategy stream, we launched that with a webinar on June 25th. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, let Kimber or I know, and we can send you the recording to that webinar. But it's essentially an introduction to the Common Agenda and to let you know about the coaching process that you'll be embarking on throughout the rest of this year. The third curriculum stream is around youth and community engagement. So on August 19th, we had a great webinar on engaging youth, and we heard from different organizations about best practices. We have a recording from that webinar. So again, if you don't know what I'm talking about or you weren't attending, then please let me know or let Kimber know and we can send that to you. And then on September 30th, which is in about 2 weeks, we will have a private webinar where we will talk about evaluation and reporting for CBYF, and then that will launch that curriculum stream for the remainder of the year. So this at a glance is what we'll be working on throughout the rest of our year together. So in addition to this timeline, we've also broken it down by quarters. So as I mentioned, we're in Q2, so that's about July to September. So we're really at the end of Q2. And we wanted to highlight to you the key pieces of work that we know that you've been working on and how we're tracking as a whole. So against each of these curriculum streams, we've divided it by each of the months. So with regards to the backbone staff component, we know that you have been posting and hiring. Some of you have met us already, which has been great. And some of you are onboarding your new staff. We know that some of you are still in the process of that, and we look forward to meeting the new staff who are eventually hired. So this webinar is really to introduce the new staff to the work that we're doing. And for those of you who are in the hiring process, you can send this recording over to them. And of course, Kimber and I are resources in case you want more details. With regards to the Common Agenda and Core Strategies curriculum, as you know, for those of you who received the funds for the 1920 CIF projects, the Innovation Fund projects, you've been starting on those, you've been building your leadership table and organizing youth groups. On August 13th, about a month ago, we had a community of practice where you were able to meet each other and have some conversation. We also know that you've been building relationships in your community and organizing these youth groups and preparing for the convener coaching. So as you know, we are launching into the Common Agenda coaching. We actually started that in August. So some communities have already started the coaching. And for those of you who haven't started coaching, we'll be booking that this month. So you can anticipate that starting up in September. And then we're also going to be launching the Innovation Fund. With regards to the youth and community engagement curriculum stream, again, we have the webinar August 19th, and then we have another community practice at the end of this month where we'll be talking about youth engagement. Kimber will be talking about that in just a second. And then finally, when it comes to evaluation and reporting, we know that many of you have completed user profiles. And for those of you who haven't, please send that over to Pamela as soon as you can. And then at the end of September, we'll have the webinar on evaluation and reporting. So that's Q2. We will go through this with you in detail in our check-ins. So Kimber and I will do that. So don't worry about the details right now. We also want to quickly show you Q3, and Q3 runs from October, November, and December. So there's a lot of things that are coming up the next quarter, and I'll just go over it at a high level so we have time for your questions and so you can hear more about the Innovation Fund. So with regards to the backbone staff component, we're anticipating a number of communities of practices where you'll be able to talk to each other about the innovation work that's happening in your communities. With regards to Common Agenda and Core Strategies, again, remember, we're hoping that in September, you'll be starting the coaching with the conveners. And then we're hoping at around late September or October, you'll have coaching with your leadership tables. So that's when you'll be designing your Common Agenda, your core strategies, and plan on a page. We're also offering some coaching around developing your Innovation Fund proposal. So if that's something that's of interest to you, please reach out to Kimber or myself. We have some webinars lined up, which Kimber will talk about in just a second. And then we're hoping that in November and December, broadly speaking, you'll be forming working groups, developing your work plans, and developing your year-round strategies, implementing those strategies, and then implementing your projects. With regards to youth and community engagement, we're hoping that you'll also be receiving some coaching around community engagement or youth engagement, if that's helpful, and then rolling out those strategies. And then with regards to evaluation, we'll be working with you on a community by community level so that you can develop evaluation frameworks specific to your context. We have a couple of webinars lined up, and then we're hoping that you can start implementing your evaluation plans. We also want to remind you about key deliverables by March 2021. So as you'll see, you've actually done a bunch of these already. So many of you have already decided on a local convener and a fiscal host. Many of you have already created a cross-sector leadership table with youth representation. You have a local backbone staff. What we're focusing on for the remainder of this year is developing this community plan. So that includes community mapping, data analysis, developing common agenda, developing some core strategies, some strategies around communications and engagement, as well as your evaluation and learning plan. As I mentioned before, we'll also be working with you to develop your progress reports And then we're hoping you'll be continuing to engage with us on our learning community. So these communities of practices and other opportunities for you to learn with each other. We also want to share with you the communities that are part of the CBYF initiative. So to remind everyone, okay, I'm going to do my best. So Laval, Quebec, we have Whitehorse up in Yukon, Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories, Chilliwack in BC, Portage La Prairie in Manitoba, Prince Albert in Saskatchewan, Sudbury in Ontario, Grand Prairie in Alberta, Corner Brook in Newfoundland, Ganawage in Quebec, Digby in Nova Scotia, Chatham-Kent in Ontario, and Iqaluit up in Nunavut. So take a moment to see who your coach is. As you know, you are assigned a coach who will be supporting you throughout the course of this initiative, so you get access to them on a regular basis. If this is unfamiliar to you, then please let Kimber or myself know. Okay. We also want to let you know about something exciting that has recently developed. So as you know, you can access up to 4 hours of coaching per month from your designated coach. So keep in mind that this includes any pre-work and any post-work. So that's about 1 coaching session a month, maybe 2. And then in addition to that, you have access to up to $640 per year for public courses and workshops offered by Tamarack coaches. And this is for the first year of the initiative. We'll let you know if this continues, but you can anticipate that you can use this amount for now up until March 31st, 2021. So if you end up using all of these funds and there are courses that you want to continue to partake in, you will have access to a membership discount for registration. And then from time to time, we will offer some special courses to communities, so to all of you at a discounted rate so that multiple members can access it. If you have any questions about these, again, please let Kimber or myself know. I also want to highlight an example of a course that you can take that's live right now. So Lisa, who's one of our coaches, she offers a Foundations of Community Engagement course on the Tamarack website. It is an online course at your own pace. It's $199, but again, you can use that fund, that $600 plus fund, towards this. And it's a great online course. It's about 5 to 10 hours, and you get to have some small group coaching with Lisa. And again, it's at your own pace. You get some practical tools, support, and lots of capacity buildings to support you in this process. So if you're interested in this, reach out to your manager of cities and we will connect you to this course. So this is one of several course offerings that will be available to you. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Kimber.
Thanks, Trisha. Welcome, everyone. Bienvenue tout le monde. Hajime mashite. It's so nice to meet you all. My name is Kimber Kunimoto. I am calling from Takaranto. Along with Trisha, I'm one of the managers of cities with the Communities Building Youth Futures project. We call it CBYF just for the new folks getting to know the acronym. If you hear CBYF, it's the initiative that we're talking about. A bit about myself. I came to community work as a young person with lived experience. Really wanted to create space for my peers and other young people to be change makers in their communities. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you and also working with you to meaningfully engage young people in your communities. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2020-2021 Community Innovation Fund, and I'm going to give a bit of background for folks who are new to the initiative and just getting to know it. The idea behind the Community Innovation Fund is offering a separate pot of money for all 13 communities to consider community champion change and create distinct solutions within their communities. It is a funding opportunity that opens every year until 2024. So applications will be opening today and closing October 30th. And really, it's thinking about what innovative solutions will support young people locally. This year, what we did is we reflected a lot on what communities told us during the 2019 funding proposal. And so when designing the application process and the learning opportunities, we really wanted to make sure we were giving people more time to apply, more information on the application itself, transparency around the criteria that's going to be used by the review committee to consider each application, as well as capacity building so that communities can co-lead with youth to develop the innovative projects and meaningfully engage youth through a design as well as a delivery of the project in order to improve education and employment outcomes, along with addressing systemic inequities at the community levels that create barriers for youth. Trisha, I might ask for some assistance because I'm not able to move the slides forward. Thank you. So as I mentioned, this fund really seeks to center youth voice. Youth voice, youth engagement, and youth leadership are key components of CBYF. It's an opportunity to try new things in your community, to test solutions, develop experiments or prototypes. And as with all of CBYF, the projects are aiming to improve education, training, and or employment outcomes for youth locally. It's crucial that these projects are addressing systemic inequities at the community level. And there's a large aspect of it that's learning. So each recipient of the fund will be asked to document stories and evidence and learnings to share with the broader community. It would be great if projects are things that, you know, maybe we're testing it in this part of the country and another community could be inspired and tested in theirs as well. So it's really an opportunity to learn from successes and failures through the project. So each year, the total amount of money offered is $300,000, of which $100,000 is allocated specifically to youth-led projects. The maximum amount that each community can apply for in the fiscal year is $50,000. That being said, we will consider project sizes of smaller amounts. So even if you have a small scale project that needs $5,000 to deploy, we would consider it as well. You are able to plan out a multi-year project. However, we are only going to consider one fiscal year at a time, and we will require you to submit a new application in subsequent fiscal years if you are accepted. This particular year for 2020-2021, we will be prioritizing youth-led projects and projects that demonstrate meaningful engagement of young people. So that means young people are part of either the design and or delivery of the project. They can be new services or programs that you hope to test out in your community. The fund will cover technology costs, but will not support capital costs or construction projects. And all of the funded applicants, all of the projects receiving funding will be required to participate in project evaluation and submit several reports during the fiscal year. So the assessment criteria for the fund, we are considering innovativeness. So is the project creating a new program, model, system, process, or service? We're considering the feasibility of the project. So is it likely to achieve its goals? We're considering the extent of youth engagement. So are young people between the ages of 15 to 30 involved in the design or delivery? We are considering diversity, equity, inclusion, and reconciliation. Is the project addressing systemic inequities that create barriers for young people locally? We're considering the ability for the project to achieve education, training, and or employment outcomes. We'll be considering the community impact of the project. So is it likely to make an impact in the broader community, not just at the organization level? We're also considering the potential to scale the project in other communities. So can it be replicated by other communities? Is there an opportunity for other communities to learn from this project? So these are the assessment criteria that the review committee will be looking at in consideration of each application that comes in. So what we learned last year is that communities asked for more capacity building opportunities. And so what we've done is we've developed a learning series that involves webinars and community of practices focused on community innovation, youth engagement, and evaluation. We're also going to be providing custom coaching for each community. And so after the call, your manager or city will reach out to have a conversation with your convener and assess what areas of coaching will you need the most support on? Is it developing the budget? Is it evaluation? It could be beyond that. It's really based on the needs of your community. And then we'll set up coaching calls with your coach at Tamarack. I would also, Tricia, if you could go to the next slide. I would like folks to think about if there's anything else, any other topic areas that they would like to have as part of our Community Innovation Fund learning series. If there's something right now that's percolating, so Right now we're focused on community innovation, youth engagement, and evaluation. If there's something within there that you have questions about, please share them in the chat box and we'll be sure to consider that. If you don't have any questions right now, no worries. As I mentioned, your manager of cities will be reaching out after this call and we can have a conversation at that time. Next slide, please, Tricia. Thank you. So if you want to kickstart your learning, Tamarack did a 5-lesson series a while ago on community innovation. And the series is a combination of videos as well as worksheets. It's on our website. So I've included a link here and you will get access to these slides after the call. That's a really great place to start, especially if you're having conversations with your leadership table and talking about what is community innovation and what could it look like within our community. So some of the key dates that Tricia mentioned already, your manager of cities will be reaching out this month to get a sense of what your coaching needs are in relation to the Community Innovation Fund. Following this webinar, we will be sending you, we've already shared the overview, but we'll send it again, as well as the application form. And it's a private website, so we'll send you the password to access the private website. On September 17th, our focus for our community of practice is on youth engagement, specifically the role of youth engagement in your leadership table, backbone staff, but as well as community innovation. So we'll start having conversations there. Sorry, this is a mistake. It should be October 8th. We have a webinar on community innovation and youth engagement. So we're gonna have a few different organizations who have experience with community innovation and youth engagement to talk about some of the lessons learned that they've gained from their experience. And then on October 15th, we're gonna have a community of practice focused on community innovation and evaluation with our evaluation lead, Pamela. On October 30th, the applications are due. And mid-November, applicants will be contacted and funding will be dispersed to successful applicants. Tricia also mentioned that on October 28th, we're going to have a public webinar on meaningfully engaging youth in evaluation. So we understand it's past the application period, but if you're really interested in youth engagement and evaluation, we would encourage you to participate in the webinar. Now we are going to open up for some questions, and I might ask Tricia not to screen share. I don't see any questions right now in the chat box. So folks, if you would rather type in your question in the chat box, you can do that. If you would like to ask a question out loud, there is a reaction button that you can press. And I'm just going to make this bigger so I can see everybody at the same time. Any questions so far about the Community Innovation Fund that I just discussed? I know it's a lot of information that we gave you, so we will be connecting with you again. Any questions on the onboarding information that Tricia mentioned, the timeline, what else is coming up from now until March 31st? Tricia, if you don't mind going back to the presentation.
And I think Joanna had a question.
Sorry about that, I didn't see. Joanne?
Yeah, well, it could be clarified later, but I was wondering if to have an innovative project, it could be something that has happened somewhere in another community that seems to work well, and that inspired our community and we would like to try it. Is it receivable in that case?
Yeah, so I guess I would consider, is it innovative within our community and is it really innovative? So if, I'm gonna give a totally hypothetical example, if your community has never had an after-school program before and you've seen that another community has, but you know that after-school programs are a pretty common program model to try, I wouldn't necessarily, I feel like from the review committee, that wouldn't be considered an innovative project, but if it is something brand new that you've seen another community do, then yes, you could definitely consider what does that look like for our community? What's the problem that we're solving? What's the particular gap? And then how does it specifically relate to youth in Laval? That could be something that would be considered. In this application, we are asking for more information on community background. So that at that part of the application, you could talk about what the benefit would be locally.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. So we're going to launch a little poll. We want to get a sense from you the benefits of this private webinar today. So I am going to launch a poll right now. If you could take just 30 seconds to answer. Your answers will remain anonymous, and it's going to, the information you provide is going to help us design future webinars. Thank you, everyone. Trisha, could you please go to the next slide? Thanks. For folks who are new and just getting to know our organization, so there's a few different ways that you will hear from us. You will probably hear from your manager of cities and have monthly meetings with us. We'll share opportunities for webinars and publications, but we also have a bi-monthly newsletter, and this is a really key tool that we use to communicate what's going on within the CBYF community and what's to come. So if you haven't already signed up for the newsletter, I strongly recommend you do. It is bilingual, and we'd also recommend, if your leadership table is interested in staying updated on what's going on, please feel free to share it with them as well. Our next newsletter is going to be going out on October 15th, and we're focused on youth voice for this edition. Trisha, could you please go to the next slide? Thanks. So here's our contact information. Both Trisha and I will be, for the new staff that are getting hired, I imagine we'll be getting to meet you over the next month. But feel free to reach out to us directly if you have any questions. We're so looking forward to working with all of you, and we're really appreciative that you took this hour out of your day to come and join us and meet each other. We will be sending the application for the Innovation Fund today, and the recording of this call as well as the slides will be sent to you in the next few days. I want to thank everybody again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Please feel free to reach out if you need anything.